gooped, gagged, flabbergasted. Whatever word you need for shocked, that was me reading that. And so I immediately bought book two. It just came in today. When love comes in. What's up, everyone? This is About Brooke Tyler, where we talk about the books that I read, the things that I write, and the art that I make. And today, all we will be talking about is Relic by Preston and Child. If you watched my last few videos, you know this was next up after Lost World, and I opened it up and then I didn't put it down until I finished it. This book is so freaking good. I don't know if this is the post reading high, having just finished the book, but this is now at the top of my favorites list. It's probably going to knock out my nostalgia number one, which, if you don't know, is His Majesty's Dragon. I can't be objective about that book. It's one of my all-time favorites. But this might be kicking His Majesty's Dragon to the curb. That's how much I like this book. So, one thing I want to just talk about, we're going to keep it spoiler free for the beginning, just so I can kind of persuade you to read the book, and then we're going all in because there are some things I have to talk about. I've been blowing up my family to talk about. So, let's get in it. So, Relic by Preston and Child is the first in a 26 book series. I did not know that when I first picked this book. No one told me that. That wouldn't have altered my decision. I've started long series before, and I have no problem like stopping when they don't interest me, but I'll keep reading them until I get to that point. So, 26 is a little daunting. I wasn't too worried about it. It wasn't going to turn me off. But this book is the first in the series, and I'll just give you the basic summary. It's set in the New York Museum of Natural History, and there is a creature or monster killing people in the museum a week before this really big exhibit is supposed to open. So there's a lot of pressure on the police and the FBI to solve this case, as the powers that be at the at the I was about to say hotel, as the powers that be at the museum do not want to push it back. They want this event to go on, which is kind of, it's very cliche in this type of genre, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I feel like looking back on this book, I can call that cliche because it's 2026. This book came out in 1995. How tropey was the director, mayor, whoever in power saying, "We can't shut down the beach because there's a killer shark. We've got this so and so going on." So yeah, I was not deterred by that, and they don't run away from that either. But that's the bare bones. There is a monster in the museum, in the sub basement of the museum, killing guests, and we're trying to figure out what it is and how to stop it. So let me try to sell you on the book outside of that. If you like Jurassic Park, and even if you didn't, I'm talking about the books. If you liked the Jurassic Park and Lost World books, and even if you thought they were okay, I think you would really enjoy this one. This still has that scientific element that the Jurassic Park books are known for. There are some there are some graphs. They're not used as heavily as they are in Michael Crichton, but they're definitely in there. And there's a definitely a ton of science jargon. I was sitting there reading some of it like, I'll just wait till they gotta explain it to character B because I'm not following. I'm reading it. Do I know what these words mean? No. And like always, the next scene they're dumbing it down for someone, which means they're dumbing it down for me. But there's a scientific element mixed with this that I think will appeal to a lot of people. And and the reason why I say, even if you didn't like Jurassic Park or were kind of like meh on it, why I think you would like this book, I think you would, because it's less about the creature and more about the mystery. Because they open very clearly with the monster. I mean, it's not described or anything, but the attacks start within the first 20 pages. So you already know what it is. Um, or you already have a sense of what's going on. But the main draw of this book, I feel, is the mystery. The monster is cool, don't get me wrong. The attack scenes were written great. It was very vivid and descriptive. But trying to figure out what it is, how it got there, how it relates to all the things in the crate, that's what hooked me. I mean, and you're sitting there reading this, making certain assumptions, and you think you know what's going on. You're like, okay, they told us this. I'm starting to lean that this is what's actually happening. You learn some new information. You're like, oh, okay, so I was right to a certain extent. And then they flip that all on its head. And that's the beauty of the book, is that you really, or at least me, I don't know if I was a poor reader, I really thought I had it figured out. I thought I cracked the code. And then the last 20 pages, I think, told me I knew nothing, told me I fell for every MacGuffin and red herring, and I need to open my eyes and pay attention. But that mystery being resolved, it dropped my jaw, man. I couldn't even believe it. I sat up in my chair when I read it. I thought we were just, kind of getting into the wind down. But to read this ending catapulted this book to the top of my favorite reads. It's so good. Now, I can admit some of the characters, they don't really fall flat, but there are some that are definitely stronger than others. Pendergast he pops immediately. Like once he's introduced, um, once he is introduced, you know exactly who he is. His interactions with other people are great. His dialogue is great. His intellect is definitely shown. They kind of lean into that mysterious, super smart Sherlock-esque detective thing he's got going on. So he popped immediately. DaCosta was another one who kind of popped for me, and I wasn't expecting it. There was something about his attitude, the way he played off Pendergast, that I liked. I liked that they were friendly. I liked that he held up his side, like he held his weight. Sometimes you get into these duos and there's always one doing all the solving and sleuthing and policing, and there's someone who's just there to tell you how great you're doing. And that wasn't DaCosta. He was very active. His his scenes on the night of the event, on the night of the superstition exhibit, perfect. Great. And it came to parts or moments where I was like, how is he going to get out of this? How is he going to get himself out of this situation? And there was never a moment where I felt like the authors were grabbing at straws, or, oh, this is so convenient. I felt like everything progressed naturally. There was one thing they did, especially with the event, um with the superstition event that the directors were on their head that they can't push back. Um, they laid it out very clearly what could go wrong. So when you read the overbearing safety measures they were trying to take, and how Pendergast and DaCosta were like, that's not going to work. You're sitting there like, oh my gosh, everything they're saying is going to happen, and then you almost feel like you're prepared for it, and then you're not prepared for how wrong that night goes, which I thought was genius. I was like, oh, okay, so they're kind of letting us know how this event is going to fail, and then it fails harder. Great. uh I stayed up till 4 a.m. to read the superstition scene or event. I've been calling it an event in my head. I stayed up till 4 a.m. to read it because I felt like I couldn't miss a moment. It was so tense. It was so action packed for me. I I was with the characters. There were some I was waiting to see how they were going to get their comeuppance, and that was perfect. So, all in all, really fun book. Like I said, my favorite characters were Pendergast, DaCosta. I actually really like Margot now that I'm thinking about it. Margot, she snuck up on me. I felt that at the beginning, you were kind of wondering how does she fully get involved in this? Or more specifically, how is her expertise going to be used, to solve this? Because her particular field didn't really have anything to do with biology. She was more studying plants. So I was sitting there wondering, like, how is this all going to circle back to the creature they're hunting for? But what I really liked about her is you see how smart or resourceful she is in the moment. When things are going wrong, she doesn't really freeze up. She's realistically scared, which I liked, but she also doesn't let that stop her from thinking, how am I going to get out of this? So she snuck up on me, I will say. I was okay on her in the beginning, but by the end of it, I really liked her. So those are my three favorite character. There's another character I'm going to talk about in the spoilers because he gooped and gagged me. Um, Literally, I no idea, no idea he was going to do anything like this. But that's my non-spoiler rambly section. If I was going to summarize it, the book is action packed. The monster is cool, but the mystery is even cooler. Or the mystery is more, what's my favorite word, compelling than the monster. Um, in the ending, it's all worth it. The ending, the superstition event makes everything in this book worth it. Because I can admit the beginning is kind of slow. I don't mind. I liked reading about the murders, what they were trying to do to solve it already before we got to the event. It started to pick up. It started to pick up, I think, around. Well, it was always like this for me, but I'm trying to think objectively on people who might be stalled by the slower start. But it starts to pick up once everybody starts kind of talking to each other. Once people start getting into a room and admitting that this might be some type of unknown creature instead of a big cat, they all trying to think it's either a tiger or some madman running around with some device hacking and sawing away at people. Once a core bit of the characters start talking about that, takes off, takes off. Book is so good. Had not been able to stop thinking about it for the last 2 days. So yeah, characters, monster, mystery, that freaking ending. Everyone should be reading this book. It might take you some time to find though. When I ordered this, I ordered it used, as you can tell. I love me a good used book. I like the yellowing of the pages. Um, and it took like 2 weeks to get here. And I'm glad I waited. And I'm glad I knew nothing. I know there's a movie out after I Googled the series after I finished this book, that there's a movie, and I'm glad I've never seen it. Because one, the movie sounds like right up my alley too. I love that type of stuff. But that would have really spoiled me, I think, for things in this book. And I love that feeling when you're reading something and you go like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I did that throughout this book. So Relic, Get in My Face Now by Preston and Child. Everyone should be reading it. I don't care if you hate it. I don't care if you hate it. I want you to read it so we can talk about this ending. Okay, let me calm down and we can get into some of the spoilers. So, I think I just want to acknowledge first off that event was crazy. The event that I'm talking about, again, last thing of spoilers, because I think everyone should read it spoiler free. So, hopefully, you're clicking back and watching this after you've read it. But that event failed so spectacularly that it was delicious. It was delicious. So, there have been The first murders were two young boys. One was 12. They don't really specify how young the other one was, but they were brothers. They were found torn apart, their brain, parts of their brain eaten. Sensational. Everyone already is kind of assuming from the force of the attacks that it's an animal, and trying to figure out what type of animal is loose in the bowels of this massive museum. The second attack is a security guard. And by then we have our main guy, DaCosta's on the case. Pendergast is on the case. Um, they're finding they're finding evidence. They find a claw, they find some saliva, they send it to DNA. They kind of trace it back to these crates that you're introduced to at the very beginning of the book from a failed expedition into the Amazon, I believe. They are doing Pendergast, Acosta, Margot, her mentor, Dr. Frock, are discovering so much, but it's not helping them locate or find the creature. Or like some of them, they're having a hard time believing it's an unknown animal or man doing this. So, like I said, the attack started a few days before the event, the superstition exhibit that's supposed to open. And Pendergast suggests to the director, because there's three people at the top. He suggests to the director, his PR person, and this other scientist who's like the head of some department. He tells them, we have to close it. We have to cancel the event. There's a murderer happening in this building, and we don't know what it is, and doing an event with all these people is a bad idea. What do you think they say? They say, screw you, like Jaws, this must go on. I'm hoping that's right, because I don't want to admit I've never seen the movie. I know just enough to know that there's an event that someone doesn't want to cancel. If I'm wrong, eat me up in the comments, but I'm early enough that I don't think anybody's going to see this. So the director calls his buddy, the governor, gets Pendergast thrown off the case, and he is replaced by an A-grade asshole. And boy, does he do the job. Cutsby, I believe is his name. I'd have to double check. Comes in and does exactly what his character was written to do. Fuck everything up. Excuse my language. He does it so naturally, so easily, so arrogantly, that I was like, now I can't wait for it to fail and all of this to fall back on you. I cannot wait for it. So Pendergast is still there, so is DaCosta. They suggest things to the new lead of what not to do with this event. Um, One thing the new guy suggests is only having one way in and one way out, and they have over 5,000 guests. He doesn't want to hear anything that Pendergast and DaCosta have to say. So what do you think happens? Failure. So what no one knew, because there hadn't been a murder after the guard, but what no one knew was that the monster was still killing. He was just hiding the bodies. And where do you think he hid one of the bodies? In the exhibit that the new asshole detective or new asshole FBI guy would not let anybody do a full sweep or check of. So, what do you think happens when 5,000 guests go into the new exhibit? Someone looks up, sees a hidden body, in pandemonium, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to read. The stampede, all the power going out. I don't even want to talk more about the scene. It was great. That kept me up to 4 a.m. reading through all that, how it just toppled like a house of cards. One thing kept leading into another, into another, into another, until the entire museum was shut down, lock and key, with I think about 40 people trapped in the museum with a monster who's ripping people to shreds and eating their brains. Great cinema. Cinema. That's how descriptive it was. I could read it and see exactly what was going on. So, if you read it for anything, just to get to that part, because it has everything you want when people are kind of getting their just desserts. You have the director and his little lackeys holed up in a room talking about how they're ruined. I'm like, yeah, you're ruined. You should have never done it. You should have put things off. And then you find out they knew more about this than they were letting on. They had covered up a murder 5 years earlier, which is what led to this string of murders. I'm still being cagey because I just want you guys to read it, but uh, it was great. So, one thing they tell you in the Amazon is that during this expedition, it was this guy named, I know I'm about to pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry, Whitley. That's how I said his name in my mind, and it just kind of stuck. Is in the Amazon. He's looking for a lost tribe. His little team, they split up. What gets it back to the museum are seed pods or eggs, as one of his kind of co-workers described them as, and a figurine that he wrapped in leaves that was found around like the hut where he found the figurine, and it's all sent to the museum. And then everybody on the expedition dies. Whitley is never seen again. He walks off into the woods, and then all the other people who made it out of the woods die in a plane crash on the way home. And so then those crates sit in customs for like 5 years. And that starts the rumored curse of the find of this expedition. So you're sitting here, from my point of view, sitting here thinking, okay, so one of the eggs clearly hatched. It has a mythical connection to the figurine. That's why it's in there killing people. But then you start to think, okay, the eggs in the crates have been at the museum for like 5 years or at least 2 years now, and no one has died. Why all of a sudden are things happening? And then you learn that one of the director's lackeys, when he went down to go check the crate and he found all this blood, that's the murder they covered up. He had moved the crates behind this big metal, like a vault, and nothing could get in. And there was evidence of the creature trying to get in, because you learn from Margot, our one of our main characters who really grew on me. You learn from Margot that the creature is eating the plants that Whitley wrapped the figurine in. It's part of his diet. It's part of the creature's diet. And the protein, they source the plant. It's some virus on the leaves, and it's causing a protein to be produced that can also be found in the human brain. So that's why it's eating the brains of people, because it can no longer get to the leaves. So it can only go for these poor substitutes. And I was like, okay, we're learning stuff. But then Margot asks the question, these crates came from the Amazon, and then they were in New Orleans, and then they sat here. Because then you learn in throughout the book that there were similar murders in New Orleans where these crates were as well. Margot asked the question, how did the museum beast know to come to New York? And that it kind of haunted me through the rest of the read, because I thought honestly that I cracked the code. I was like, yeah, we're missing the mystical element. It is connected to this figurine. It is trying to get to it, or it has a connection to it. That's how it knew to come to the museum. It is something is calling it. Here's the big spoiler, because I just have to talk about it. I just have to talk about it. There's a character in here, George. Um, he's another side character. He's one of the scientists. He has this big computer that helps them sequence the data or the DNA of the plants, which is how Margot was able to discover that there's a virus on the plants that's producing this protein that the beast eats. That's how they figure out the whole reason why the beast is eating people. But George, our scientist who didn't fully believe in this so called beast until the superstition incident, he looks at it further, and he alone figures out the true mystery of the beast. Because we're all thinking it's some mutated animal, it's some life form that's indigenous or relegated to this part of the Amazon that evolved differently. George figures out that it is a virus, that if you eat the plants, it turns you into the museum beast, and that the beast that has been killing the people is Whitley, the lost scientist from the expedition. Mind freaking blown. Literally did not see that coming. Sat up in my chair when I read that. He put that together. He didn't know why anyone he didn't know why no one else saw it. He figured because since he wasn't trapped in the museum that night that he's can be more objective, he can pull himself away from it and figure it out. But he figured out that it was the plant. If you eat enough of the plant, it changes your DNA into the beast. That's why the thing was so freaking smart. That's why it knew to start hiding the bodies when people were searching for it. I'm still reeling from that reveal. Still reeling from it. And then you read further and learn that George not only stole a part, like a little fiber or seed from the plant that they had, that they were trying to use as bait when the whole event was happening, because after everything went down, after they killed the beast, the government went in there and they destroyed everything. They took the body, they burned the crates, they burned the plants that Margot was using. But George snuck in before they did and took a piece, and he started growing his own. And now he has a whole plethora of them. And not only that, you learn that he figured out there's another use for them, and it can be like a drug, like freaking heroin. And he starts selling it on the side to fund his research. And that's the lead into book two. Gooped, gagged, flabbergasted. Whatever word you need for shocked, that was me reading that. And so I immediately bought book two. It just came in today. I started reading it today. That's how much that ending pulled me into the series. I was sold. Ended on another cliffhanger or another lead in like that. They had me. I was like, what do you mean it's a virus that turned a human into the monster? And now you have a scientist who is now replicating the virus, breathing all that stuff in because he has one throwaway line where he says his asthma isn't even bothering him anymore. He's never breathed better. And he's selling it on the street as drugs. I need to know how that ends. I had to go buy this book. I bought this offline. It got here in 24 hours. Hooked, line, and sinker. And if my spoiler people are watching this, if this reaches wide enough, you have to tell me if that surprised you. Because I didn't see that coming. I was so focused on a mystical element. I let myself be pulled in, like the name of the book is Relic. We're focusing on this figurine. The people in the Amazon that Whitley was trying to find kind of worship this monster, which you can kind of see on the cover. I fell for every red herring and every misdirect. I didn't even think about the plants. I didn't even think about the plants. Oh my god, it was such a great twist. Everyone should read this book. Okay, I've got to let go of my rant. So clearly this has sucked me in and this has jumped on my TBR. It's kicked everything. Forget my book haul video. Forget Michael Crichton who. It's Preston and Child right now. So I'm going to read book 2 and hopefully I have like the strength to pick up a different book after I finish this. But I don't know, man. I don't want to become the Pendergast because that's the series. We follow the FBI guy Pendergast from what my googling has told me. I don't want this to just be a Preston and Child channel. I mean, there's 26 books. If I like every single, if I pick up the third one, I like it, and then I want to pick up the fourth, I'm going to need a break eventually. But I can get sucked in on a series and just want to follow it till I'm done with it. So I'm going to try to not be just the Preston and Child page, but right now we are on the Preston and Child train until we finish this book. Again, I've got to say it 4, 5, 6, a million times. Everyone should read this book. I don't care if you hate it. I just want you to read it and be blown away by that ending as well. So I don't have anything else to rant to you guys about. I'm going to get back into this right now. And that's all I have for you guys today. Good night.